Hi, my name is May. Welcome to my channel. And today we're talking about the books that I read in the third quarter of the year, which is July, August, and September. So, the second half of the year, the first book that I read is Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood. I honestly can't remember what happened in this book. I remember that he is like an older man, probably in like his 30s, looking back at his youth when around the time when his friend passed away. And I remember him making friends with another girl who is very like upbeat and a lot less depressed as his other friend. But I honestly cannot remember too much of what happened. I remember enjoying it while I was reading it. It felt very slice of life and it felt very angsty. It felt very Catcher in the Rye, but if Holden was in Japan. I think perhaps I was not in the right mindset to read this book at the time. I thought the writing was good and I really did feel kind of immersed in his life. I just felt like I couldn't connect with any of his life experiences. Everything just felt so different from mine. All of his problems were not my problems that I felt growing up. And I just had a really hard time connecting with the experiences that he had and the things that he was going through in the story. But I can see that if people do connect with the story, how they can really, like how it actually kind of does hit hard. It's just, it didn't hit hard for me, unfortunately. So I reluctantly am giving it a 2 stars just because of my own personal tastes and situations. So don't shoot me, please. So, the second book that I read in the third quarter of this year was Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. This is another book that I can't remember what the hell happened. I'm starting to realize that maybe I need to not wait so long to do book wrap-ups because I feel like it just goes into my brain and then like it fades away really, really quickly. But I do remember enjoying this book while I was reading it, even though its exact details are escaping me. I didn't write notes, which I feel really dumb for, and I'm going to remedy this going forward. But from what I remember, this is a story of Macbeth, but told from his wife's perspective. And she is this young girl from a foreign country. I believe it's France. My guess is France, who is like this renowned beauty. And not only that, but her father kind of fed into the rumors that she was like witch kissed, and people believe that her gaze can make men go mad. And so in the story, she sort of navigates her new brute of a husband and this court that she has sort of married into. I remember enjoying reading this book, but the details of it, obviously, I can't really remember. I just got like the general vibes, and obviously it's Macbeth, so we kind of know the story. And I feel like I just enjoy Ava Reid's writing. I feel like there's always this nice, like if you like dark and gritty vibes, that's like a little bit unsettling, but not too unsettling. I feel like her books are like perfect. And the vibes were 10 out of 10 on point. So I gave this book a 3.5 stars. The third book in the third quarter that I read was The Redemption of Earl Nottingham, which was a webtoon. I forgot. I yet again forgot what the hell happened in the story. I can't even, like, nothing is coming to mind. Literally nothing. So it must have been a really good webtoon for me to want to continue reading the novel, but the novel itself, I just, like, cannot remember what happened. I don't even remember what the webtoon looked like. I feel like I might have been under the influence when reading this book and like just binged it in one sitting. But I gave it a 2.5 stars. I originally gave it a 3, but I'm going to give it a 2.5 because I can't remember. Now, the fourth book that I read this year is, I don't have the dust jacket, but it is Tusk Love. Is it up? Yeah, it's upside down. It is Tusk Love by Thea Guanzon, which is based off of the Critical Role universe. I am a huge fan of Critical Role. I've watched almost all of season 2. I've watched most of season 3. I haven't finished it yet. And I've watched a lot of their one-shots, so I'm very familiar with Exandria as the world. So in this world, we follow Guinevere and Oscar, where Guinevere is, I feel like she's a sorceress. That's like my guess, where she has this cool fire magic that she doesn't quite have full control over. And she's on her way to Nicodranas to marry a man that she's never met, but her parents have chosen for her. And on her way to Nicodranas, she gets attacked by bandits, and basically Oscar saves her. This is like a bodyguard trope. I feel like, honestly, this book is like every trope in a single book. And yeah, it is very fluffy. It kind of read like a well-written fanfic to me. And to be honest, I kind of just wanted to get through it to say that I read it. I didn't really care for the romance. I didn't care for the main character. There wasn't a lot of development in terms of like their character building, and everything was super predictable. And I really wish I had a better time reading this, but unfortunately, I gave it a 2 stars. Okay, so the 5th book that I read this quarter is Heavenly Bodies by Imani Erriu. This is a romantasy that focuses on our main girl, who is an orphan from a foreign kingdom that was destroyed by a god. And she was able to escape, but was captured by a neighboring country that and was taken to their king. And their king believes that she is the key to killing the gods that have sort of ruled over the lands. And so he houses her and trains her to essentially be his weapon. She is trained by his son, the prince, who hates her. But as they sort of get to know each other, they sort of fall in love, and a whole bunch of shit gets revealed. I devoured the first half of this book. The romance was okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I think that the world was super interesting. I loved that the gods were very real and that they roamed the lands just like they were normal people with like extra super strong powers. And I like that each god sort of represented like a star sign, which is something I haven't seen before. I'm sure there's like other books that may have done that, but this was the first instance where I've come across it, and I really liked it. The romance got pretty old for me really fast, and I think that I am like really into like the slow burn yearning. So when they eventually got together in this first book, I kind of stopped caring. I also wish that the characters themselves had a little bit more to them. They were pretty much your like tortured prince who had a hard-ass father, and you're like a strong, independent girl who lost their parents. And she's, you know, obviously sassy, because they always are. But overall, I had a really good time, and I did finish it like incredibly fast. So it was like very, very bingeable. And I did give it a 3.5 star in the end. The next book that I read in this quarter is probably, this is my favorite read of the quarter. And it is Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. And it's like, it sort of reads like a dystopian 1920s, 1940s setting where dragons and humans live together in this like fragile harmony. And the humans currently live, at least in the humans in England, which is where this story takes place, live in like a class-based society where the first class gets the best of the best, the second class is your middle class, and third class is basically like in poverty. Our main character, Vivian, is in class 2, and one day her parents get arrested for being a part of the resistance against the current government, and so she kind of does dumb shit to help her parents kind of get out of trouble, but that essentially gets her into more trouble and leads her to getting caught. She, however, is given a second chance to work at Bletchley Park, which is basically this like code-breaking division, where if she helps them break this code, she can get her parents' name cleared. That's like the quick, fast like summary of it. I absolutely love this book. I found Vivian to actually be smart, though misguided at times. Though I find that like characters like these tend to be very frustrating. I found Vivian to be the complete opposite. I felt like every decision she made, I understood to the bone and may have made those decisions myself. I also found the setting to be super interesting, where you actually feel like the world has changed based off of this setting. It's not just like the problem that I had with Babel was that like, oh, this world has magic, but it still felt like our current world. This world actually felt like it changed and is very different because of these magical creatures that we are living in symbiosis with. And the plot and the mystery was honestly very exciting and refreshing. I felt like it was like a new take on like dragon and human relations. And I could not put it down. This book is, I think, one of my favorite books this year, and I gave it a 5 stars. So highly, highly recommend. I will definitely pick up the second book, which is coming out in January. So, love this book. The next book that I read this quarter is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm sure I'm butchering that. But I started reading this book because I wanted an Arabian Nights themed story to help inspire a TTRPG one-shot that I was going to run for my friends. And boy, did I take a lot of inspiration from this book. Basically, we follow a thieving girl from Cairo named Nahari, I think is how the audiobook pronounced it. Who kind of stumbles into some dormant magical abilities that she's basically had all of her life. And she accidentally summons a powerful jinn warrior named Dara. And because she used her powers to summon this warrior, it attracted a bunch of like ghouls and ifrit to her location. So essentially Nari and the jinn warrior that she summoned were first forced to leave the human world and flee to the hidden city of Daevabad. Meanwhile, we have another point of view of a prince named Alizaid. He is honestly my favorite character. He's kind of young and a bit of an idealist, but deep down, he's actually like a really good guy. He has been funding, or so he believes, the poor and oppressed half-human population called the Shafit in Daevabad. But in reality, it's actually going towards the Shafit resistance and is actively working against his father. And so this sort of complicates his standing in court, and he's sort of having to juggle these like two conflicting forces that he's found himself in. I had a really good time reading this book. I love the world. The characters were very dynamic, and the plot kept me so engaged that I could not put the book down. And another book, this is one of those books that I finished within like 2 or 3 days. I fell in love with Alizaid from the very beginning. I thought that he was just like such a good character. He was like a good guy placed in a very precarious scenario, and I love that. Normally, I'm not huge on dual POVs, but I really enjoyed both of their perspectives, and I felt like it wasn't too many, because I find that the multiple POV stuff, they'll jump between like 5 to 6 people, and I feel like that's too much. The dual POV, I'm starting to realize that I'm okay with it. But I thought that the romance between Nari and Dara was good, and I get it. But I was honestly I was rooting for Ali from the get-go because I read Ali's parts and I was just like, this is the good guy. I know for a fact that this is the end game guy, because he was just too good. He was too perfect. But for some reason, like by the end of it, I was really feeling for Dara, and I kind of had a bit of a flip. Like I don't know if it was because he was like treated so poorly, and like the more we learned about his troubled past, the more we understood like his scenario and his situation. And I don't know, I felt like I was kind of guilted into liking him more. But overall, I do think Ali is the better match for Nari. But I just like wasn't expecting to have like a change of heart like that. And I really enjoyed that. So, but yeah, overall, I am honestly excited to read the rest of the series, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. It was really good. Okay, I'm losing track of what number book this is in this quarter, but the next one that I read is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I love her writing. I love her writing. This book was the perfect fall vibes because I believe I read this like late August, early September, and it was like the perfect like turning into fall spooky vibes. Basically the story, we follow Cordelia, who is the complete opposite of her mother, Evangeline, where Cordelia is like shy and meek. Her mother is very like confident and a bit of like very, very dominant. Cordelia is very plain, and her mother is like incredibly beautiful, though honestly it's like pretty much glamour. Cordelia is very selfless and a people pleaser, while her mother is very selfish and manipulative. One day, her mother all of a sudden says that they need to leave. She says that they have lost their benefactor and they got to get out of town. Of course, being this like manipulative woman that she is, already had her eyes set on someone else, which is like this wealthy squire. And manages to sort of weasel her way into letting her and her daughter stay with them. The squire also has a maiden sister who is older, and she's like kind of feisty in her own way. Like she's feisty in like a refined way. She's very like Lady Danbury-esque for you Bridgerton girlies, who kind of sees through Evangeline's bullshit like right away. And she realizes that not only does she has to save her brother from Evangeline, but she also needs to kind of get Cordelia out of her mother's grasp. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I read it was the perfect spooky season vibes. It felt like a darker Bridgerton, a very like much more older, and instead of like trying to find a match, you're trying to break up the match. And I really, really liked it. Every character in this book was fun and dynamic, and it was filled with very strong women who all had different strengths. And even though like Cordelia is like young and meek, you kind of watch her come into her own power, and I thought that was very beautifully done. And I highly recommend this book. I gave it a 4 stars, and I think it like the timing could not have been more perfect. The book that I read after that was also very on theme, which was Gallant by VE Shwab. This is actually my very first VE Shwab book. It is a Gothic fantasy where we follow our main character, Olivia, who is an orphan, and she's also mute. Oh, and she also sees ghosts. So one day she gets a message from her uncle saying that he's always been looking for her and was unable to find her until now. He tells her that she needs to come to his estate named Gallant. However, when she gets there, this uncle had already passed away, and her cousin didn't really want her living with them. He sort of felt like no one from their family should be in this house and tries to turn her away. However, she has nowhere else to go, and so reluctantly, he allows her to stay there temporarily. During her stay there, she begins to uncover mysteries about the house and sort of what happened to her mother and all her other family members, and why her cousin is so adamant that she leaves and that he becomes the last prior to stay in this house. Prior is their last name. I don't think I mentioned that. Honestly, another good book with a really great vibe for spooky season. So I think I did a really good job at picking the two books. So I've heard a lot of really good things about VE Shwab, and I was really hoping that this book would make me feel like swept away. And it was one of those books that I wouldn't want to put down. Unfortunately, it didn't quite sink its teeth into me like I thought it would, though I have a feeling that her other books will have that effect on me. And that perhaps maybe if I had read Gallant first and then The Sorceress Comes to Call, I might have rated it a little bit higher. But I couldn't help but compare the two. And I did enjoy Sorceress Comes to Call quite a bit more than Gallant. I felt that the mystery was really good in the first half, but by the second half of the book, I kind of pieced everything together. And I kind of just found myself wanting to read so I can finish the book rather than actually reading the book because I wanted to read it. The vibes were great though, and I thought that the writing was to my liking. It might have just been a bad ordering of books on my part. I did give it a 3.75 stars, so almost a 4-star, but not quite. Okay, so the last book that I read in this quarter was Phantasma by Kaylie Smith. So this book takes place in the early 1900s, New Orleans, where we follow Ophelia, whose mother just died. And so now she has taken over her powers as a necromancer, which basically allows her to see ghosts, similar to her previous book. Her mother, unfortunately, has left her and her younger sister in a lot of debt. And debt collectors have come to their house saying that their house will be seized unless they're able to basically pay off the debts that her mother have acquired. One day, Genevieve, her younger sister, goes missing, and she finds clues that she has joined Phantasma. And Phantasma is this deadly competition ran by devils where the winner gets a wish granted. And so knowing that her sister has joined, Ophelia then tries to join Phantasma to try to retrieve her, where she meets this super hot phantom that strikes a deal with her, saying that he'll keep her safe if she helps set him free from Phantasma. I had a really hard time with this book. It was a little jarring at first because I found the setting actually a little bit confusing. I had to Google it. Because of the dialogue, it felt like it was more modern day, and then all of a sudden it started talking about needing a carriage to get from one place to another. The reason why it felt so modern was because the way the dialogue was, it didn't feel older. We have these two young girls that were cursing and swearing at everyone and everything, which honestly is fine, but I felt like it didn't fit the time. I felt like their use of swear words were way more free, were used more freely like they do today, rather than for emphasis and as people used it more back then. I also picked this book up and then put it back down, and then I picked it up again later. But it just felt way too long. I really did not care for the competition. There was way too many levels. And I really felt like the characters outside of our two main characters were just so dry. They literally felt like they were there for fodder. I also, one of my biggest icks with this book was the main, our MMC just kept saying good girl to a grown woman, which was a huge ick for me. Like, that is not hot. That is demeaning and gross. And if, like, my fiance ever said that to me, it better be as a joke or I'm vomiting. I'm like, ugh, no, don't like it. Not for me, not my thing. I feel like it did pick up in like the 80% mark, but that wasn't enough for me to like want to read the second book. I like the last bit I did enjoy. I did like reading it. The twist was good, but the last 20% wasn't enough to carry the first 80. So yeah, I ended up giving this a 2.75 stars. So yeah, there you have it. Those are the books that I read in the third quarter of the year. Some of them were huge freaking bangers, and others really were a big disappointment. But yeah, stay tuned for the final quarter of the year, which is coming soon because it's already December. And I need to kind of stay on top of these things because I'm very lazy and I procrastinate in editing. But yeah, if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys hopefully in 2 weeks.